Hello, welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen David, the channel that brings you your team every single day. And we don't charge you for any of the content. We always say no Patreon, no paywall here. Right, guys, look, one of the things we need to develop is this trading model. Now, part of the trading model obviously is to bring in players, to sign players, to develop those players and then flip them for more money. That is the job that Niels Koppen, Director of Football Recruitment, has been assigned to. But it does seem that the Belgian revolution is taking over Ibrox. Not only have we got a Belgian Director of Football Recruitment, a Belgian manager, obviously the director of the academy as well is also Belgian as well. He's a guy called Zeb Jacobs. For those of you who don't remember, Jacobs, obviously not a particularly Belgian name. There is Zeb there. I've got to say, I went back and I was looking on Rangers YouTube, and I found an interview from him. It's from the 11th of January, but I actually went back and watched it about 2 or 3 times, went over it. Didn't read the Rangers review article because I don't pay for content. I don't believe you should pay for any Rangers content. I think you should be able to access, as a fan, Rangers team content for free. It shouldn't be hidden behind any paywalls. So look, I talked a little bit about, I've read up a little bit about him as well. Did a bit of study on him. I've got to say, very, very impressed with this guy. The way he talks, the way he outlines his vision for the academy and his vision for the future of the club. Because look, number one, like I said, part of the trading model is going to be bringing in players like hopefully Mohamed Diamande, developing him, selling him on, flipping him for hopefully 10, 15 million in the future. That is the way this club can generate money. We are unfortunately suffering under an absolutely appalling TV deal thanks to the ineptitude of the SFA and the SPFL, and the fact that Neil Doncaster couldn't organise a piss of brewery. I think, that is always going to happen. So we do need to obviously look for revenue streams. Now, I'm excited to see the club have obviously gone down the pay-per-view route as well with those games that they've scheduled, 1 for this year, probably 2 for next year. This is a real developmental way of really increasing the revenue stream into the club. Now, another way, obviously, is to bring players through from the youth system, to develop the young players, to get players up and running. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Zeb Jacobs has had to say. And look, I think Rangers are very guilty, I think, in the last few years of not really bringing through enough young players, not really developing enough young talent. You go back across time, obviously, Billy Gilmore, Nathan Patterson. I mean, I'm talking about recent times rather than the past. But, you talk about those guys that have come through and then gone on to play for other clubs, that we've sold on. We've got Ross McCausland, obviously, who's doing a fantastic job in the first team. He's described as being a breath of fresh air. Quality player, Ross. He goes at players, he commits players. He's a good lad. And, I think giving it a bit more time in the first team, a bit more development, I think Ross is going to go on to be a real asset for the club. And I don't understand the criticisms that he gets from some fans. I think it's bang out of order. He's a young lad. He's still learning the game. And people say, oh, well, he's 20, 21 now. Yeah, but he hardly played any first team football. And playing B team football to playing first team football is very, very different. We know that. Now, Zeb Jacobs in this interview was talking about the outline, the vision for the academy and how the academy works. He was also talking about the exchange program as well that we've set up with RB Leipzig, which is a very exciting program. I'll talk to you a little bit about that shortly. But to be working with a team like Leipzig, who are well known for their youth development, is fantastic. Also, as well, the appointment of the new head of coaching at the academy, Zurab Amiran, who is a UEFA A license holder. He's coached in the Belgian league. Yes, the Belgian league again. Has been a head coach. Has done a lot of youth development work, and is a very good guy at what he does. And again, very exciting and up and coming. Now, when I was listening to this interview and listening to what Zeb Jacobs had to say, he talked very much about individuality. He talked about making Rangers the most innovative, exciting place to learn in European football. And I think that is really encouraging. And to me, there seems to be a real drive within the academy structure now to modernize it, to bring it up to speed, to bring up to the development levels of the EPL academies. You look at the EPL academies that bring through quality young players, in particular, say, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester City, who are bringing through some cracking young players. And I think Rangers are really trying to learn from those clubs about what they do, how they do things, and develop the way we do things. Now, he talked about the fact that it was not only tactical outputs, as he put it, and physical outputs. So obviously the tactical side of the game and the physical fitness side of the game that needed working on. And he talked about how in the academy, they'd analysed both, and they'd kind of looked at, number one, for the tactical outputs, what was the general weaknesses of the academy teams? What was the general weaknesses of the B teams? What was the general weaknesses of the underage teams, and how they addressed them? And they talked about, last third entries. They talked about pressing, and they talked about all these different things. And he talked about how they were putting in place structures to overcome that and to develop that side of the game. He talked as well about the fact that, it was all about lessening the step between the B team and the men's first team squad. And obviously, he spoke about the fact that obviously Ross McCausland was a good example of that, and the fact that, in the games this season, we've pretty much had one academy player at least on the bench in every single game. Part of that obviously has been down to injuries. I do understand that. He talked as well about physical outputs as well, and how he was working with bespoke training programs for the players, that every individual player at the academy has a bespoke training program, that it is not one size fits all approach, which I think we were kind of guilty of in the past. A kind of, let's just run them up the hill, down the hill, round the pitch, lift this weight, lift that weight. Now we're good to go. That's not the modern way of doing things. You have to have bespoke developmental programs. What works for one player may not work for another player. And the fact that Zeb Jacobs spoke very much about the fact that we are putting in place bespoke developmental programs for our players is absolutely fantastic. The fact that each player, no matter what age group he is working at, is being spoken to on an individual basis and in a group basis by his underage coaches, by Jacobs, by Amiran, by these guys, that they're spending time with these players. And I think the one-to-one nature as well is very important. Sitting down one-to-one with players and saying, right, this is what you are doing exceptionally well. To make the next step, you need to do this, this, and this. And this is, and then to do this, this, and this, you need to be able to do this, this, and this to develop. Now, this for me is the way forward. And he talked as well about a data-driven analysis, computer-driven analysis. It was a lot of the modern ways of doing things. Again, not just what the coach had observed, but going back, looking over game footage, looking over training footage, looking over individual footage, watching players individually, breaking that down for each player and looking at how they develop those players. It does seem that there is a real genuine commitment within the club now to get this youth setup right, to develop this youth setup and move the youth setup forward. Now, the other great thing for me as well in this interview, he spoke as well about what they've done this year in terms of B team football, in terms of developmental games. We played Monaco at Ibrox, we played Leuven, their first team. We also went down to Manchester City, played their academy teams. They're putting in place games to really stretch and press these guys. Yes, playing in the Highland League, playing against Scottish teams is not the great test that these boys need. We need to be able to see, can these guys do it at the highest level? As a club, we are aiming for the highest level. We are aiming not only to be the dominant force in Scotland, but to be a force in Europe as well. And we need to test these lads. And it certainly is a case that we are testing these lads against these young underage group teams as well, from some of the big teams across Europe, which is exactly what we need to do. We played Liverpool as well, who have a very, very good youth setup. He talked also about the fact that we've got now a transition coach in place who can work with the boys in terms of transitioning that move between B team and A team football, something that has been missing in past years, something that I think that has led to some players like Alex Lowry, for example, not being able to make that step up. Leon King struggling in the Champions League last season when he was thrown, the season before when he was just thrown in. This is where we're at. This is where we're up to. And there is a clear development program here now. There is a clear structure here. It seems innovative. It seems positive. It seems developmental. It seems like it is really moving forward. Brian Gilmore, who is that transition coach, his job is to work with these boys to bring them through from B team to A team, to not just make a debut, but once they've made a debut, to then obviously cement their place not only in the matchday squad, but in the first team as well, as Ross McCausland obviously is now starting to do. We've got young players who are coming through, like Zach Lovelace. Zach looked fantastic in that St Mirren game until he got injured. Cole McKinnon, another one, Bailey Rice, Robbie Fraser. These four young lads, I think, have the potential to be real solid contributors to the first team within the next 12 to 18 months. We need to be looking to bring these lads through, develop them, get them playing. And I think, we've got to be looking at it in terms of the fact that give them SPFL games, give them games that, they've got to step up, and if they can't step up, then they're showing they're not Rangers players. Play them against Livy, St Johnstone, Ross County, Hibernian, Motherwell, those weaker teams in the Scottish Premier League. Give them their opportunities to play. I don't think they'll let us down. Zach Lovelace, I think, is a better striker than Cyril Dessers. Cole McKinnon's got a role to play. Bailey Rice is a quality player. It's interesting. There's been a number of English clubs, EPL clubs. I'm not talking about lower end EPL clubs sniffing around him. I'm talking about the likes of Arsenal and Manchester City looking at him. He's a good young player. Robbie Fraser, who impressed when he came on against Hertha Berlin, giving him the opportunity, can play left side, left footed, something again that we are lacking. Now, something else that Zeb Jacobs spoke of was the link that we've founded with RB Leipzig. Now, I'm not sure whether you guys are aware, but part of the RB philosophy is the trading model. RB are very much a trading model type club, whether that's RB Salzburg, RB Leipzig, RB in New York, whoever it is. They're there to buy young players. They're there to bring young players through. They're there to develop young players and sell them on for big profits. Christopher Nkunku, for example, Timo Werner. These guys that they've developed, they've sold on. That's the way that RB Leipzig work. Now, Rangers apparently have developed this link now with RB Leipzig so that we are doing player exchanges, so that players from our academy are going over to Leipzig to learn, and RB Leipzig players are coming over to our academy to learn. So not only are our players getting an experience of obviously our academy, they're also getting an experience of Leipzig's academy as well. And the same back, we're getting getting some of their players, and it's a co-learning process. Not only are our boys learning when they're out with Leipzig, the Leipzig boys, we're learning from them, we're learning their fitness levels, they're learning from us. It's a coexistence, and I think working with a club like RB Leipzig, who are, like I said, very innovative, very forward-thinking in terms of youth development, this is very positive. And Zeb Jacobs talked about the fact that he can see us becoming like an Ajax, like an FC Porto, like a Borussia Dortmund, like an RB Leipzig in the future is very encouraging, because as a club, that's where we need to be aiming to be. The days of us being able to go out and buy the Amarusos, the Laudrups, the Newmans, the Gazas, the Negris, the Dado Persos, Nikita Yeloviches of this world, they're gone. You look at those players now, you're looking at 80, 90, 100, 120, 150 million for some of those players now. I mean, Brian Laudrup in his prime, if he played today, would be 150 million easily, the Jude Bellingham style price. Someone like a Nikita Yelovich, you'd be looking at 40, 50 million pounds to buy him. There's no way as a club, with the league we play in, with the revenues we bring in, that we can compete with English Premier League clubs, with Barcelona and Real Madrid, with Paris Saint-Germain, with Bayern Munich. And I know FFP is playing a part, but these clubs don't seem to be affected by it as much. They do seem to have endless, boundless amounts of money. Barcelona seem to be spending beyond their means, as do Real Madrid every single season. So for me, this youth development way of doing things has to be the way of the future, to bring through these players, to put in place this trading model, to generate this income. Now, I'm confident, and I know that if we can get this up and running, if Niels Koppen is given time to get this up and running and the backing financially, and Zeb Jacobs is given the time in the academy with Zurav Amiran to really develop this, this is a situation where we can become like a Borussia Dortmund, like an Ajax, like an FC Porto, like a RB Leipzig, that bring through their players. They benefit from those players for 2-3 seasons. They enable their teams to have success for 2-3 seasons. They then sell them on for big money, big profits. You're bringing either lads into the academy for nothing, or you're paying 1 million, 1.5 million here. You're then flipping these guys for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 million in the future, generating big amounts of money, which can be reinvested not only into the first team squad, but also into the youth development sector. Now, listening to this guy and listening to Zeb Jacobs talk, it really is, there is a clear vision there now, something I don't think there has been in the past, and a quality of delivery. Now, you can talk all you want about this is what a youth academy needs to do, this is what a youth system needs to do, it needs to bring through young players. And I've got no doubts in my mind that these young lads are as committed as anything to being Rangers players. They are committed to wanting to come through. They love the club on the whole. A lot of these young lads are Rangers fans. But if you've not got the coaching in place, the developmental structure in place, the the little bits and pieces you need around the edges to push these lads on, you are not going to get the results. And I think it's fair to say in the last 5 to 10 years, we really have not brought through enough young talent into this squad. Yes, Billy Gilmore. Yes, Nathan Patterson, for example, but they've gone on to play for other clubs. We do need a system that is providing players for our first team and that is providing quality players for our first team. And I've said on numerous occasions, on numerous videos, there's something extra special about a Ross McCausland, isn't there? About a Zach Lovelace, about a Bailey Rice, about a Nathan Patterson. There's something a bit more special about one of those lads coming through, breaking through and being quality for your first team than even paying 5 million, 6 million, 7 million pound for a player. You know, the 6 million for Danilo, you know, if we were to go and get Lawrence Shanken for 3.5 million, you know, there's something a little bit more special about a guy who's come through your academy, who's come through your system, who's one of your own, representing the first team and excelling for the first team. And that's something the system that Zeb Jacobs and this youth team setup seems to be putting in place, a system whereby we can bring through players who will excel for our first team. I'm very optimistic about the future in terms of this youth system. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, I'll drop a link to the video of Zeb Jacobs' interview in the description for this video. Please check it out. Good watch, really good watch. Well, guys, I just want to do something slightly different today rather than talk about transfers and the first team and talk about, obviously, the Hibs game on Wednesday. We will talk about all those things, don't worry. We will keep up to date with all the transfer news, but trying to bring you a bit of sort of insight into what is going on at the academy. I think the future's bright. The future is orange, blue, white, white and blue. They're going to cover all, to quote that advert, and obviously include the Rangers colours in there. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. As always, if you can do me 2 favours on the way out. Number 1, smash the like. It helps the video to grow. And number 2, as always, never forget, we are the people.